Let's imagine that you've been caught by the CIA doing one of the biggest crimes of humanity ever. You're too bad for prison, and death isn't even bad enough for you. Oh, and you're Muslim, and you get no trial. You're most likely going to be sent to Guantanamo Bay detention camp, which is American, but it's clearly on Cuba. So why does a country that hates America let them own it? And why does America own it? Well, to answer this question, we have to go all the way back to the 19th century. Back then, Cuba was owned by Spain, and Spain was going through a little depression phase because of the Peninsular War, the Carlist Wars, and most importantly, the loss of all their Latin American colonies. Cubans noticed that Spain was becoming an extremely soft shell of its former self and wanted to join the rest of Latin America in their independent republics. Spain was having none of it, and the US took notice of this, putting more pressure on Spain to let go its remaining colonies. Many Americans liked the idea of intervening, however President William McKinley had some cold feet about this and hoped for a more peaceful end to the revolt. And knowing Americans, they absolutely didn't want something peaceful to happen. But the USA couldn't just declare war on Spain. Imagine how imperialistic they look. They needed a reason to declare war. Then the USS Maine got blown up near Cuba, so of course everyone blamed Spain because A, it could made a great excuse to declare war, and B, it rhymed, so it caught on. And it was on. I'm not gonna go over the entire Spanish-American War because it needs a video by itself, and I hope Oversimplified doesn't beat me to it, but the key part about this was the Battle of Guantanamo Bay. American and Cuban forces seized the important harbor of Guantanamo Bay and kicked the Spanish out, and the Americans thought it was a great place to build a naval base so that they could invade nearby Puerto Rico, but they couldn't use it until the war was over. Then the war was over, and the Cubans were fine with the Americans owning an important naval base in their soil, but the land wasn't leased until 1903. So that's it, right? That's why the USA owns Guantanamo Bay. We can end the video right now. But there are still questions that should be answered, like why Cuba's current government, which is communist, hasn't forced them out of the bay. Well, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, there was a minor military harassment from the USA at Guantanamo Bay, which severely angered Cuba. Not much happened there after the whole thing was resolved by the US and the Soviet Union. The US kept Guantanamo Bay. However, the leader of Cuba, Fidel Castro, was extremely unhappy about this, especially that an important naval base owned by their enemy was just being allowed on their soil like this. And this actually did a great job in rising tension between Cuba and the USSR. But can't Cuba just invade the bay and kick them out? Well, yes, they could if they wanted to become the 51st state. This bay isn't worth starting a war over. Sure, it's got a brutal detention camp and a naval base, but it's also owned by the world's most powerful nation who could crush them like a bug. Plus, they look like the attackers, so the world won't save their ass when they get invaded. And last but not least, why is the detention camp at Guantanamo Bay of all places? Why not on the mainland US, or even Alaska? Not even on one of their Pacific overseas territories. Well, first of all, Guantanamo Bay is closer to the US, so there's that. But there's one crucial fact. A detention camp as horrible as Guantanamo would not be allowed on the mainland US. Imagine how horrified the people would be. Seeing all those people being force-fed, waterboarded, and worse. If Americans did it on Guantanamo Bay, they could hide it from the eyes of American citizens. Another bonus is that since it's not directly under US law, they don't have to put people on trial, which reveals why so many of the terrorists are there when they did nothing wrong. America just did it because, I guess they hate Muslims. Anyway, there you have it. That's why the US owns Guantanamo Bay. And if you're a Cuban watching this, just remember that your mortal enemy is right in your backyard, so just pray that you don't get invaded.